So I guess in the last class, I kind of lost my voice because I was sick over the weekend, so bear with me on that. But my presentation is on how political parties make us feel secure, yet separate us from our fellow Americans. So I guess the first question we have to answer is, why do we have political parties? There's a fundamental human need to feel secure in one's opinions. A popular way of finding this security is congregating in groups of people with similar ideologies. Political parties at their beginning were this group of people with similar ideas and values, and to some degree they still are, but in many ways they have been corrupted. So let's take a look back to September 19th, 1796, George Washington's farewell address. He said, "The efficacy and permanency of your union, a government for the whole, is indispensable. No alliance, however strict between the parts, can be an adequate substitute. They must inevitably experience the infractions and interruptions which all alliances in all times have experienced." In 1796, he warned against separation, for it would destroy the fabric that kept us together as a nation. But, being human, we persisted in creating a two-party system. In his address, he also said, "However combinations or associations may now and then answer popular ends, they are likely in the course of time and things to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion." Andrew Jackson, anyone? Fast forwarding through years of demographic changes, legislation, and party switches, we arrive at the present gridlocked Congress. All experiments that deal with polarization find that we are currently more polarized than ever. But why? For the past 200 years, we've had some kind of multi-party system. The first answer is party leadership. Quote, "Theories of party government suggest that party leaders can apply strong pressures on their members to vote the way the party desires." Lehman, Carsey, and Horowitz also agree that there is a top-down process by which polarization occurs. They say, cultural polarization began in Congress, in party platforms and among party activists, and then was translated into the growing divisions between the party's mass coalitions. While party leadership is the biggest problem, there is also party activists and campaign finance that contribute to the growing polarization of the American electorate. For those of you who aren't as familiar, in order to get re-elected in the House of Representatives, you must raise at a minimum $2 million. And if you are running for the first time, you must raise even more than that because you don't get the perks of some congressional funding. Yes, if you are an incumbent, you get to use some of Congress's money on sending letters out to your constituents. If you're in the Senate, you must raise almost 3 times that. I think it is a problem that most of our representatives are more worried about fundraising for their next campaign and not worrying about current legislation that could help our country. Not only is there this apparent problem, but in order to get supported by one of the 2 major parties, you must vote certain ways on current legislation. These pressures from party leadership to vote certain ways contributes to many bills being passed that make seemingly no sense until it's too late to change it. Sometimes these pressures also come from outside supporters, that is, party activists that try to corral congressional members to walk the party line. They do so by donating large sums of money, having candidates speak at fundraisers, and helping coordinate campaign events in their local towns. Diverging slightly from the parties themselves and onto the American electorate, Lord Stroud performed an experiment in which multiple candidates gave the exact same speech. The only difference is that their party identification or emotions used when giving that speech. The results of this test concluded that when the party identity was given to the voters ahead of time, they tended to side with the candidate that held their party affiliation. She writes, "As expected, the candidate was evaluated more positively by participants whose party matched the candidate's label than by those whose party did not match the candidate's label. Even though each candidate gave the exact same speech, voters seemed unable to get past their identity bias." I did my own research on the topic. You may not remember, but the other class remembers that survey that I pestered them all to take, and while only 20% of them openly stated that they agreed with the statement based on the person who said it and the political party of that person, upon talking to many of them, I got responses that sounded a lot like this. The answer I chose was worded more coherently, or the wording was better. I wrote all of those statements, and while Martin O'Malley, although he has great arms, did not say that about the American jobs. I think subconsciously our mind tries to reinforce our political affiliation when deciding who we most agree with. And while the people in this room are much smarter than most of the country, I think my hypothesis holds true for much of the American electorate. The American electorate is very vulnerable to candidates who promise to fix their social ills, financial problems, and their lack of employment. But in reality, most of these candidates are only saying that to get them elected. Who you believe can do it better is subjective, but let's face it, there are only so many ways to fix unemployment. So, how do we fix the impending doom of a completely separated public? We could change primaries to be open and runoff style to allow more third-party candidates on the ballot. We could reform campaign finance, better adjust district lines to stop gerrymandering, create term limits, etc. But the fact of the matter is that no one is willing to do that. Barbara and McCarty say Congress needs such medicine, but also how unwilling a patient it is likely to be. Thank you.